Hello and welcome to Lore Watch, a roundtable freeform discussion about lore and your favorite media. I'm your host, Joe Perez, one of several lore-focused folks from Blizzard Watch, and I've got my adventuring paleontologist with me today, starting with Matt Rossi. How are you doing today, Matt?
I can't do another dinosaur squawk, so yeah, I'm okay. Hi, guys.
And also joining us is Eric, who was gracious enough to join us for the last episode and is here for the continuation of our discussion about the wonderful influence and world of Jurassic Park. How you doing, Eric?
Now you do plan on having dinosaurs on your dinosaur podcast, Joe. I think we got a roar last time, Matt.
Yeah, I said you're here, man. Make a noise.
Oh, my turn.
If
How
you
about
want to.
I'll do a Dilophosaurus, maybe like a.
There you go.
Don't do that. That's not cool.
All right, well, folks, we're going to be talking about the second part of our Jurassic Park extravaganza. And again, we will be looking forward to more questions from you in the future. And if you do have those questions, be sure to send those in. You can hit us up on podcast@blizzardwatch.com, specify the show that it is for on the subject line, as well as any special pronunciation of your name. You can also hit us up on Discord. We have the Q and Podcast Question channel where we have the same rules that apply. And then we have the Patreon Q and Podcast Questions channel, where we tend to look there first as a way of saying thank you to our Patreon subscribers for helping us keep the lights on. But the first episode of this, we talked about the first three movies and their influence on creating essentially the Jurassic Park generation, what the story did, why it did what it did, how they sort of course corrected, or as some people will like to call it, a retcon, some of the items, and created essentially a lifelong phenomenon and love for dinosaurs that has spurred paleontologists to really like kids to become paleontologists and discover a ton more about dinosaurs that they didn't know before, as well as get into DNA and biosciences. So really important and sort of keystone work for a very formative generation of people. But
it's interesting, therefore, and I wanted to bring this up really fast because Eric is here, and Eric mentioned him in the last one. Dr. Henry Wu was a pretty major character in the first book, who died in that book. He got his role cut way back in the first Jurassic Park movie, but he is possibly the most important character of the Jurassic World films, at least the first three. Even though he's not in them all that much, he isn't like constantly on screen. His role is actually pretty astonishingly broad in the follow-up movies.
I believe he's tied for most on-screen appearances in movies with one or two other characters, which is, he's eaten by velociraptors like 75% of the way through the first novel. So he makes it through, however, he's in like 5 of the movies, including this middle trilogy here. He's a major character.
I think he's in the first 3 for sure. I don't know if he's in Rebirth. I'll be upfront, I have not seen Rebirth yet, guys. Sorry, I just haven't. But the other 3, he's there. Like, if it weren't for Wu's existence and his employment at Biosyn, the films wouldn't happen.
And he's got an arc too. I mean, I'm sure we'll talk about it. We're talking about these 3 movies, but he's not just background character who's flat and saying, "I'm trying to figure out what science can do." He learns some things and he does some growing.
Yeah, he's not science exposition man. He doesn't just show up to explain what's happening. I'm glad you asked. Story. But at the same time, a lot of the stuff that happens is very much, it goes back to the thing you said about how in a scene in the book, he's talking to John Hammond and he makes the point that they don't have to make, recreations of quote unquote real dinosaurs. They're already failing. They're not real dinosaurs. So they can do whatever they want. They can make what people expect. And that's the crucial plot line of Jurassic World, is what happens if Henry Wu gets his way.
Yeah, he even says at one of the movies, he says like none of this is real. Like he's trying to stress that this is all like his creation. He gets a little bit of the ego that comes over from the novel of like the God complex of like, I have created this, I own it, I'm all powerful, until like, in the later the Fallen Kingdom and Dominion, it kind of falls off a little bit. But the point of all of this is an illusion. All of this is just dinosaur-like monsters we've created.
Yeah, and So you want to tell people like the plot of Jurassic World? Do you want me to do it again?
Well, I want
can
to
do it.
chime in with one thing real quick before we do it. Can I just comment about what a tragedy it was that the two main characters from the film reboots were not the children from the original movies?
You can comment on that. I definitely would have liked that, but then I would only have liked it if they were the actors from the original.
Yeah, they could have done that too, but I just think it
yeah.
was such a tragedy. All right, now you may proceed.
All right, you want to do it, or you want me to do it, Eric?
You know what? Why don't you do it for consistency, and I'll chime in when I can.
Okay. Basically, when Jurassic World opens, we are given two new, young point of view characters. They're brothers who are going to the new Jurassic World, which is a theme park on an island. I don't remember which island it's supposed to be.
It is Nublar, so it's the one from the first movie.
Yeah.
2 and 3 are on Sorna, and then we're back to Nublar.
And it makes sense that it's Nublar for a reason that will come up later.
Can we just call it Cloud Island, because it's really bothering me that we're not.
Okay, Cloud Island. When the kids get to there, they're met by their Aunt Claire, who is the operations manager for the park. She essentially has the job that Samuel L. Jackson's character had in the first movie. But she's running an actual working theme park. It's a collaboration between a guy who's a jerk, whose name I can't remember, and InGen to create the park that they've wanted to create since the first movie. They have now successfully made it. It is a real park you can go to, and people are going to it. As a result of all this, whilst you are watching from the perspective of these two kids whose aunt is effectively running the place, there are a whole bunch of quirky characters who show up but who aren't really that important. But there's the character of Owen, who is played by Chris Pratt, who is he's sort of like a good version of Muldoon. He's like his Muldoon, but who doesn't shoot the animals, but instead wants to he kind of wants to be like, Steve Irwin, but of course he's not as cool as Steve Irwin. Quite frankly,
no one's as cool as Steve Irwin.
Yeah. If Steve Irwin hadn't gotten killed by manta rays, I feel like he should have just been in this movie. Regardless, he wants to actually get along with and study and even interact with the dinosaurs. He's actually training a group of velociraptors. I want to say Blue, Charlie, and Delta. I know Blue is one of them, but I can't remember if it's Charlie and Delta or not.
Echo.
And Echo. Okay, so it's Blue, Charlie, Delta, and Echo. So there's 4 of them. All right, cool. He's actually got them to respond to hand signals and even him doing weird poses, which I feel like in this case is the velociraptors humoring him because they don't know what that is. They're like, "What is he okay? I don't know. Why is he doing that with his hands? I have no idea. Let's just back off." Regardless, he's like pretty much against this whole concept of, he doesn't mind there being a park full of dinosaurs, but he doesn't like some of the stuff that's being said by other people. I can't remember what Vic's last name is, but Vic is like, we could weaponize these things. And he's like, no, that is a terrible idea. Don't weaponize them. But it turns out there's another dinosaur on this, besides all the ones that are, real dinosaurs that we've all heard of. Of course, we know they're not, but, they're at least supposed to be dinosaurs you've heard of, the dinosaurs from actual paleontological study. There's the Indominus Rex, which is a straight up chimera. It's not even trying to be subtle. It's multiple different strains from other dinosaurs and then other animals as well, all brought together into this one creation. And this thing is Henry Wu's triumph. And he's responsible for it. And they come right out. At one point, Claire even questions him on it, and he comes right out and says, "Yeah, we wanted to make this super dinosaur. It can like blend into an environment. It can suppress its heat signature. It's really smart. It can talk to velociraptors because it's got velociraptor DNA in it." Which, I mean, yeah, okay, whatever. I'm gonna accept this at this point, guys. So all this happens. At this point, like we get to the high point, like the midpoint of the film, Owen is told that the Indominus has escaped its containment. Since he hasn't been told everything it can do, he goes in there with a bunch of other workers in the park to figure out how did it get out. And there's some scratches on the wall, and he's looking and going, wait a minute. It didn't get up to the top. How did it? And then it uncloaks and starts killing everybody. He hides under a vehicle. It decides, well, I'd rather escape than kill you, but I am going to kill you, and runs off. Here's where we find out that the Indominus is actually completely desocialized. Unlike, say, his velociraptors, it has not been in any way acclimated to people or other animals or anything. It's been kept alone in this enclosure until it is essentially the dinosaur equivalent of insane. And it is now running around the park, attacking anything that it can get its hands. Actually, it is its hands. It has big hands. They have to eventually. The guy who runs the corporation that's doing all this, which is not InGen, it's something else. InGen,
Simon Masrani. They come in and they like basically pick InGen up out of bankruptcy and take over.
Yeah, but InGen is purely handling the science on this one. They don't own it anymore. They are owned by this company. He's like, we're definitely not going to kill it. I'm going to send in people with non-lethal weaponry to capture it, which works about as well as you'd expect if you've ever seen a movie. Yeah, the Indominus Rex successfully defeats them and kills most of them and doubles back heading towards the park because now it wants to eat people. Because it hates people. It absolutely hates people. As a result of all this, Owen is trying desperately to get his velociraptors to work with him and help him stop the thing. And they do try, but he can talk to them, so they're confused and they break away and aren't doing what they're told. This comes back again later. Claire, who realizes she and her nephews are going to get eaten alongside this guy that she's kind of got a romantic interest thing happening with, runs off to a hidden enclosure that nobody has really been talking about. And here's where we find out that it is Cloud Island, because the Tyrannosaur from Jurassic Park is still here. They open this giant enclosure, and she lures the T-Rex out using a flare, which is like pretty much reminiscent of when Grant does it in the first movie to get it away from the kids. She lures it with a flare and throws the flare at the Indominus, which means that it charges in and begins fighting the Indominus. Because T-Rexes have to job to every dinosaur in every Jurassic Park movie, she gets bodied pretty hard until Blue shows up to help. And then between Blue and the Tyrannosaur, they push Indominus back far enough that the gigantic, and I didn't mention it earlier, I'm sorry, the gigantic, way too big to be a real mosasaur, comes up out of the water and just kind of clamps down on him and drags him off to be eaten underwater. And that's essentially the end. Everyone evacuates, and Rexy is left to wander around on top of the old Jurassic Park buildings that are still there and yell at the sky, going, "I'm yelling at things again, just like the last movie." And yeah, that's pretty much the end of the movie. I say this, there's a bit of mockery there, but I actually do think of these movies, again, I haven't seen Rebirth yet, but of the three that I have seen, World, I want to say World, Fallen Kingdom, and
Dominion.
Of those three, this is the best one. And this one is certainly better than Jurassic Park 3.
I agree with that. I mean, the premise of Jurassic Park 3 is, what if Sam Neill accidentally went to the island again, and then they had to run from... This is just more running from dinosaurs. They really did a ton of world building for Jurassic World. And it's such a cool what if. Like, hey, in those first three movies, what if they made it work? What if
they got the park to happen? Yeah.
Yeah. What if they succeeded? What if it was a huge hit? What if there was 10,000 people there on a busy day? And then things fell apart, which is, I mean, based on the fact that they made many more movies and it kept the franchise going, people wanted to see. It was a great premise. Just what if the park had all the dinosaurs escape, or at least, I mean, eventually more and more of them escape. They have the pterosaur exhibit that gets smashed apart by the helicopter, that the pterosaurs start terrorizing people, and that's pretty cool.
And keep in mind too, this was a little bit before. It's sad that they use basically generic, I think probably pteranodons for their pterosaur model instead of Asdarkins, because Asdarkins, like Hacteropteryx, have since been proven to be giraffe-sized hunters that hunted on land, and they didn't swoop down; they walked around on their front arms like stilts and drove their giant axe faces into creatures to eat them. They would actually chase tyrannosaurs off kills. It's at least speculated that they could do that. So it's interesting that they missed that opportunity, but it's not surprising because it was 2015. We've only started learning some of the stuff like 2018, 2019 and beyond. So again, that illustrates something we saw in the original Jurassic Park movie. Sometimes it's not that the movie is bad or the science is bad. Sometimes it's that the science can change really fast. And that's sort of the subplot here with Dr. Wu. Dr. Wu sets out to do the thing he said would make it better in the first place, except he does it, he does it without any of the humility he had about it the first time. This time he's like, yeah, I can do anything. They hired me to do this and I did it. And my God, I made the best killing machine I can. And he's not even remotely upset. There's no shame, no remorse, no even real comprehension of what he's done.
Well, and that also starts off and kicks off part of the discussion that's the theme of this movie and that carries through the rest is weaponization of this, right?
Definitely. Henry Wu goes from hubris scientist man in the first one to a little bit more of like, not corporate shill, but like falling in line scientist to be able to actually do the science, even though it's not exactly what he wants, because he makes the Indominus, but he's also like taking almost no credit for the idea of it and the fact that it gets out and terrorizes. He's like, you wanted it like this. You asked for this. I made it to your request. Like the executive board of the park wanted more teeth. You like numbers are falling and one of the coolest things they do like really early is the two kids that come to the park. The younger one is like super excited about dinosaurs and like running through the park and can't wait to see anything. And the older one is like a typical teenager. He's like 15, 16 years old and he doesn't care because dinosaurs have been like known worldwide to be brought back from extinction for like 8 years at this point, and like it's wearing off. And so you see it in him like having no interest in even looking straight at a T-Rex for the first time. He's on his phone, and you see it in the company needing another new exhibit. Like, we need another new product. It's like just having the dinosaurs isn't enough. We need something new.
They have to be scarier. They have to be in much the same way the first time he wanted to make something that fit the preconceptions. Now he wants to make what they want to see, not what there was to see. And that combines with the, as Joe pointed out, the weaponization aspect, which continues in every subsequent film up until I want to say Dominion. They're constantly looking at that, like, biosciences have the potential to be massively destructive. In a way, the dinosaurs in the second trilogy are very much a metaphor for what if they actually do make a plague? What if they actually do make something with bioscience that will kill us? The dangers of going that route. It's really surprising to me that not more people seem to notice that. Quite frankly, because it's right there. It's not like they're being subtle about this. I thought people would be talking.
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of themes, and they pick up on a lot of the old ones, and they definitely introduce the new ones. I mean, they're not talking. The Muldoon in Jurassic Park is not saying, "Hey, these velociraptors would be pretty useful in a fight," right? He's saying they should all be destroyed. And then you get Vincent D'Onofrio, so Hoskins in this one, who keeps bugging Owen, saying, "Let me at him. Let me take him for a field test. Let's try him out. Let's see what they can do." And Owen is like, "You don't understand how bad of an idea that is." And Owen kind of plays almost like the Ian Malcolm role in this one. Like he's in the park and he's working with the dinosaurs because that's what he wants to do. But like he's the one that no one's listening to, even though he ends up being right about most things.
Yeah, he's a little less obnoxious, but then again, at the same time, he's also a little bit more. I want to say because he's being played with Chris Evans, there's also more inherent comic streak of him on him.
Chris Pratt, yeah.
Chris Pratt, sorry, Chris Evans. Geez, different.
There's too many Chris's.
Yeah, but the fact too is that this does continue through the next two movies, possibly because the director and writer for all three is the same person. It's I want to say Colin Trevorrow.
Yeah, Colin Trevorrow.
And since he's basically there for all three of them, and he kind of seems to have a real thing about bringing people back. And I think it's interesting that he brought Wu back as much as he did, because Wu himself, BD Wong has said that he thought they cut Wu out of the first movie as much as they did because they felt like they couldn't have an Asian guy on that much. Yeah. And whether or not that's true, it does feel interesting that Trevorrow brought him back and uses him so much. Because it makes sense. He is a big part of the first book. And his death in the first book certainly makes sense, but he does have a lot more storytelling potential, and that you do get to see it in this series of films. Fallen Kingdom is sort of just a straight up horror movie.
Yeah, it really is.
It is, forget for a moment all the cool ideas of this. What if these things got out? And what if it wasn't just like small ones getting out that are only dangerous when they like mob a child? What if it's these hybrid chimera engineered things? Like I believe it's like Indoraptors.
The Indoraptor. So yeah,
Yeah.
if Indominus is like 2/3 T-Rex and 1/3 Raptor, the Indoraptor is 2/3 Raptor and 1/3 T-Rex. It's like flipped. It's like basically like a huge raptor that is. It's got like, and they throw a bunch of horror movie elements from it. It's got like long, creepy claws, and it's blackish and things like that. It's the whole second half of the movie is really just a mansion is terrorized by a monster.
Yeah, it's almost Resident Evil in its approach to what's happening. You are in a house and there are things trying to kill you. So story-wise, it's significant, but it isn't. It's just basically, like I said, like you said, it's a haunted house movie almost with dinosaurs. But it sets up the third movie, because the third movie is where, for one thing, Dr. Wu starts realizing, am I the baddie? Like you mentioned his arc. You want to talk about his arc? Because I think it really comes to here.
He in Jurassic World, he's starting to almost feel like a hostage to the company. To he still wants to do the science, like in the same way that Alan Grant and Ellie Sattler in the first movie are going along with just a weekend excursion because they're getting their dig funded. Like that's all they care about. They don't know the island has dinosaurs when they go there. They are just told it's a weird wildlife preserve that's right up their alley. But they're told, I'll fully fund your dig for 2 years. And they're like, I will do anything you want for that. And so with Henry Wu, it's, he's has the opportunity to do something no one's ever done before, and he succeeds. And then starting with Jurassic World, it gets to be, okay, well, now we want a dinosaur. Make us a dinosaur that's like bigger with more teeth that people are going to come see. And he's like, that's not what I started doing here. I want to make dinosaurs. I want to recreate dinosaurs. I can make them more real. Like in the novel, he gets a little bit more like, let's change them to make them more, make them better theme park attractions. In the movies, he starts to move more towards, I'm just here for the science, but I'm going along with the ideas of the corporation because I still want to do the science. And this is the only way I can do it. So you want a gigantic T-Rex Velociraptor hybrid, like here it is. And I made it. And like, I take responsibility for making it, but it was your job to, keep it contained, I guess. And in the movie, another like level of the hubris is that they don't know it can camouflage until it does it and it fools them. And then later on, he says, well, actually, the cuttlefish DNA, because cuttlefish have the ability to change the outside of their skin to different colors.
Yeah, they have chromatophores in their skin. They can do patterns and so forth. Yeah, absolutely.
That must have been where that came from. So they didn't do it on purpose. And that also is one of my favorite things of this whole franchise, is that things that from the novels that get left out in translation to the screen because there's not enough time for everything, they get put back sometimes as small references and sometimes as like big scenes. Like all the pterosaur stuff in Jurassic Park 3. In the Jurassic Park novel, there's a whole scene where Grant and the kids are running from pterosaurs inside an abandoned aviary. Like that's lifted and changed and put back in the movie. In Jurassic Park, in the Lost World novel, the second novel, there are dinosaurs that can camouflage. And they don't really go into whether that's something that the dinosaur itself, the carnodosaur, if I'm saying that right, Matt?
You might be. Honestly, a lot of times I just read them. I don't necessarily know how to say them.
The carnodosaurs in that are like, they're, a theropod, they're smaller than a T-Rex, but they can camouflage themselves at night and turn invisible, and they, play kind of a major role in that novel. They're left out. They bring back the idea that a dinosaur can camouflage, and they explain it here. So there's a bunch of those. I mean, in the novel Lost World, there's a big motorcycle chase of velociraptors. They bring that back in an entirely different way in Jurassic World, but you have Chris Pratt riding around the jungle with velociraptors on a motorcycle, and that's lifted from that. But the fact that they didn't know that the Indominus Rex could do that is just another, like, they didn't care about the details. They didn't care about proper containment. They didn't care about its capabilities.
They didn't do any testing.
Yeah.
They didn't
They
test
didn't
the thing. They just put it in a room once they had it,
I think
to the point where it's like completely not socialized and kind of like crazy from solitude.
and
And
Owen even
that's fun.
says you didn't give it a brother, or he says something like that. But like you can't like you don't even know the first thing about raising animals. Actually, like you have a successful theme park of animals here, but like when management is running the show, you don't know what you're doing, and it's going to come up and bite you, and then it does.
Yeah, so it does preserve a lot of the themes. Again, as Joe pointed out in the last episode, it preserves a lot of the themes of the first book, but it also, as you said, just brings some of the things back that didn't get used before, or were cut or not really expanded upon. But one of the things it does too, especially I think this one and Dominion, this one more than Dominion, is it shows how in Jurassic Park, a lot of it was hubris. A lot of it was, you were so determined if, to whether or not you could, you didn't stop to think if you should. This one is, we are now past the point of thinking about anything unless it hits our profit margin.
Yeah,
And
it goes from these people are evil in their like lack of thinking through it, or they're just focused on the goal of like trying to do it, to like there's really evil people in Fallen Kingdom and Dominion. There's people who are, I mean, there's like a dark room where they're auctioning off the dinosaurs to the highest bidder and their genetic property, and labs are going to buy them and further experiment on them, and it gets real like super villain type instead of just, scientists with too much hubris. It gets into territory where like there are caricatures of bad guys from movies.
except that they're not. This is the thing that always gets me. We were talking before about biosciences and how one of the things that Dominion really reminded me of is Montserrat, the guys who basically have made crops that will die.
Monsanto,
thank you. They've made patented genetically modified crops that will die in a generation. So you can't harvest their seeds and plant them yourself. If you want more seeds, you have to buy more from the company. And It reminded me of that so hard. It's not the same, but at the same time, it's that kind of, all we care about is if we can get you hooked. Can we get you to come back? It's like, in a weird sort of way, it's like subscription stuff in video games. And my brain is actually blanking on it. The thing that they do that's horrible.
Microtransactions, battle passes.
Not microtransactions. Battle pass. It's like
battle pass. Yeah, the seasonal battle passes. It really is.
It's like, hey, we need a new dinosaur because kids, we got to have one to debut so that the kids will come in and see it. And do we have one? No, then make it. Make us one if we don't have one. I don't care. And that's like, there's a lot of really interesting capitalist, anti-capitalist, late stage capitalist stuff in the movie, but also just that sheer, let's divorce the process from, no one's even thinking about if they can do this. They're being told what to do. Like you said before, Wu is in it because of the science at first. He just wants to do the science. And the only way he's going to get to do the science is if he does what they tell him. To the point where in the third movie, he's making giant killer locusts.
Yeah, by Dominion, he's like, they do a good job of making him physically look almost haunted by what he's doing. Like he's not really a hostage yet in Jurassic World. He's still doing what he wants and creating things. By Dominion, he's like, he looks tired and he looks like he's been trying to figure out how to reverse the stuff he's up to, because he genetically engineers locusts to go out and eat crops that aren't made by Biosyn, which is a throwback all the way to the first novel, and it's run by Dodgson. So in the first movie, the guy who sits down with Nedry and gives him the shaving cream can and says, steal some embryos for me, they finally are able to get a hold of all the technology, get a hold of the dinosaurs. They bring them all the way over to like the Alps, the Dolomites. They have a sanctuary there. And from there, they do all their genetic stuff. And what they do is have Henry Wu create these locusts that are going to go out and improve their profit margins, because they'll make more selling their crops and their grain and things like that. And Henry Wu goes along with it, even though he's definitely like not looking to, publish papers on it. He's definitely not looking to do the science, but I'm sure at that point they have enough on him that they say, what else are you going to do? Like, you'll be ruined. You'll be finished. Your life will be over if you don't do this for us. Like, I think they might even have him physically captive almost. So all the second half of Dominion has to do with getting there and trying to figure out how to get a sample of the locust back, and he does get the redemption arc. He gets at the very end, he's able to take the DNA from the locusts and reverse engineer it and make it so that he goes out in a field and released some locusts that can delete the rest of the locusts, and he saves the day. So in the end, he gets credit for, saving everything at the end of this little trilogy. So he gets the full story arc and gets his redemption, which I'm a sucker for redemption in a movie series. I'll take it every time.
I won't take it every time, but I would take it in this one just because it's Henry. And I do think it's cool that BD Wong got to be in all of these. He does get to be. Again, I'm going to say it. I think he is in a way the central character of these movies.
Really, yeah.
He isn't presented as the protagonist or anything like that, but without him, a lot of this stuff isn't going to happen. And it's both the negative and the ultimate positive end of it is Wu's work, and it is watching Wu go from, I'm doing this thing because it's cool, it's the cutting edge of science, to I'm doing this thing because it's my life's work and I'll do what I have to so I can keep doing it, to I'm doing this thing because I really don't have any other choice, to I'm not doing this thing anymore. Yeah, you've made it cost too much. You've took my soul. I'm no longer doing this for the love of the work. I'm doing it because I'm afraid you'll have me, dumped in an alley somewhere dead. And yeah, as soon as I can, I am getting out of it. And it is, go ahead.
Hammond just paid for it. He was the one that made it all happen. Anything in this entire movie franchise that happens with him off screen, it's people running around on islands that exist because of him. So yeah, I agree with that he is like the main driving force, the main character of all of it.
Let's talk a bit about, one of the things we hadn't really talked about yet is the use of dinosaurs as story elements in these movies. I mentioned previously in the previous episode, we were talking about how there's good parts, even for the ones that I have qualms with, there's good parts of the portrayal where they don't portray them as, this is an angry monster out to kill you. They kind of get away from that a little bit in these movies. I think Indominus at times just comes off as a psycho killer.
Well, that's part of the.
I
will chime in here. That's part of like the theme, right? Because while like Eric said, the theme of like the first movies was they can do it, not thinking about whether or not they should do it. This one is about unfettered capitalism and then the weaponization of these creatures and the fallout therein. And also, like, for what I remember of them, and I don't remember all of the movies too well, and I'm sorry, I'll let you go back into the second here, but there's also an element of now you're throwing technology into it too, and the evils that presents with it, and how much lack of control you really truly have. So, like, yeah, go ahead.
I will say, though, that all that being true, what I find interesting about Indominus is, as a quote-unquote villain, because he is, he's the one running around trying to eat people most of the time. I think it's an interesting point that ties into what Eric mentioned earlier about how he's like, you don't even know how to raise animals. We know that theropod dinosaurs are the family from which birds come. Birds are theropod dinosaurs. We know birds require child rearing. It is likely that you need to do some kind of association and imprinting to keep them viable.
Well, isn't that like Chris Pratt's character, though?
Exactly. Yeah. He says, you didn't do that with this animal. You didn't give it any family. You didn't raise it. You put it in this bunker and kept it there so people could go look at the scary critter. It's not lashing out because it's an evil, heartless monster. It's lashing out because it is literally demented. It has been through an experience that it is not equipped to handle. It is a social animal. We know that because when it runs into the velociraptors, it immediately tries talking to them.
And that is definitely a theme in the second novel. In the Lost World novel, Ian Malcolm and the other scientist character that doesn't exist in the movies, they're trying to figure out what's going on the island, like how it's out of balance. There's too many predators there, and they're looking at the behavior of some of the animals that like doesn't make sense. And it turns out that, recreating a dinosaur and putting it back on Earth today only gets you so far. Like, they have some instinct. They know to hunt and eat and lay eggs and things like that. But they don't get the social behavior, anything that's not ingrained in your DNA. And so the velociraptors in the second book are just wild, vicious killing machines that have no coordinated behavior whatsoever. They're biting each other at like sites where they bring down another dinosaur and then like eating the other velociraptors. They go to the nest and the infants are like not cared for and there's not enough of them. Like, it's very clear that there's no balance to it because they don't have the continuity of being an animal for 1 million or 2 years. They didn't, the first ones that hatched didn't learn behavior from any other velociraptors. They were just on their own. And so that definitely comes back up with the Indoraptor and the Indominus as, they were completely alone. But even on the island with a population of raptors, they couldn't survive and they couldn't flourish because they were just dumped there and they had no idea how to interact.
Ironically, the raptors from the first Jurassic Park, even the movie, had more socialization than the ones in 2. And that's because they're socialized by human handlers.
Right.
So the behavior they pick up is human. They're acting like human. Not entirely, but the whole idea of like the bit in the movie where the dinosaur tries the door. Also, by the way, that's not how a dinosaur, like a theropod dinosaur, couldn't bend its arm that way. He would be snapping all his bones. Just, I had to mention it. But the idea that it checks the door to see if it can get in, that is a socialized behavior. Birds do it, but birds raised in captivity do it more. And why do they do it more? Because they see you doing it.
Yeah,
that's the thing that I really think is interesting about the second trilogy. The fact that Chris Pratt is essentially socializing these animals, it does mean that they're probably mentally stable, but it also means that they're smarter because they've seen things. They've learned those things. They've copied them. He's given them command structure. They don't necessarily need him for it anymore. And that's, something that is really interesting. The second movie, Fallen Kingdom, is all about how these animals are weapons, but they're weapons that don't have a user interface, for lack of a better word. You can't point them at anything, which makes them bad weapons. A weapon you can't command is not a weapon. It's just a hazard. It'd be like if you made a gun that just shot randomly at odd times. That's not a gun anymore. It's just a trap.
They went from the scientists were so focused on whether or not they didn't worry about whether they should, to these capitalists knew that they shouldn't. They really had to have known that, but they did it anyway for profit.
Yeah, because
that's kind of a swing.
We won't be around to worry about it, so what do we care? And it is kind of fascinating to see. I wish I'd seen Rebirth so I would know whether or not they kept up on that. Unfortunately, I haven't gotten to see it yet.
Do we want to do? Do you not want to hear about it? If we're,
I'm fine with you talking about it. I haven't seen it. I've read a synopsis that made it somewhat known by me, but I'm not going to sit here and pretend I know what it is from a synopsis I read.
Yeah, I can do a rundown of that because they continued a lot of the themes. They introduced some interesting new stuff. But basically, and they did a lot more world building because it's kind of like another reboot. We don't know if there's going to be more movies directly with this or separate from it. But just like in Jurassic World, where they need to build out what's happened over the last 10 years, they needed something else to happen to drive the story forward, and they didn't want to have a ton of time explaining it. So there's another island in Rebirth that is not part of the islands off Costa Rica. It's not part of the Five Deaths. It's not Nublar or Sorn. It's not anywhere near it. It's off the coast of French Guiana in the Atlantic tropics. And even though all the dinosaurs escaped from the mansion and are now kind of like wild in the world, what they've explained in Rebirth is that they don't do so well in modern Earth. It's too cold. The atmosphere is different. There's not enough oxygen. The only place they're really thriving is the tropics. And so you get isolated islands in the tropics that are off limits to everybody where the dinosaurs are thriving. And so the reason that we have to go to the island, it's another, hey, let's go to this island with dinosaurs, which is, like 5 out of the 7 movies. 5 out of the 7 are like, let's go to the island with dinosaurs. But there's another island, and this one was like another. It's Site C. It's a step past Site B. Site B is the factory floor. The one from the first movie is just the theme park. Site B is where all of the actual things happened. This new island is Isla del. I have it right here. Isle Saint Hubert. It's where the rejects were kept, basically, when they were doing their experiments. It's on the same time frame as the Jurassic World time. When they're doing the experiments to create the Indominus, they make it seem like in Jurassic World that they're doing it right there. It turns out that there was another island where they were doing these like experiments that would go wrong horribly over and over until they got something that was like the Indominus. So there's this whole island where the dinosaurs, and the film opens with things going horribly wrong back in the day, 15 years ago, with the researchers there and the dinosaurs escaping. And so now they're wild there on the whole island. And the story is that a person from a pharmaceutical company is interested in getting samples from some of the bigger dinosaurs because they're big, the bigger megafauna, because not all of them are dinosaurs. Actually, only one of them is a dinosaur. Basically to make new drugs. Like, we could make a heart drug if we understood hearts better, and we could look at proteins that haven't been around or used in this certain way for tens of millions of years. So he hires a mercenary. He's got Scarlett Johansson. He hires a dinosaur expert. They go to the island, and they have to get an actual blood DNA sample from a mosasaur, from a titanosaur, and from a I hope I say this close to right, Quetzalcoatlus.
Yeah, Quetzalcoatlus, yeah.
Yeah, so you were disappointed they didn't use the really big ones in Jurassic World, Matt. They came through with this one, and it's fantastic. But they basically have to go from one to the next to get those samples and bring them back to do medicine magic with them. And so it's more like Jurassic Park 2 or 3, where there's nothing to really go wrong because it's already an island with no one on it. It's
You're
just
already
the
at
people who are going there.
wrongness.
Yeah,
everything is as messed up as it's going to get. Yeah, I get you.
So they go. It's kind of a cool, like, in the first half an hour, I was like, okay, I'm on board with this because it kind of feels like a quest. Like, you must go to the island and seek out the 3 most giant and dangerous animals there and get up close to them and get a sample. And it goes sideways in a bunch of different ways, and there's plots, and then the antagonist, the big mutant, is the D-Rex, the Distortus Rex, and it's a
I've seen
horrible 6-armed. I mean, it looks more like the Cloverfield monster mixed with a xenomorph. It's really not a dinosaur. It's sort of like everything that could go wrong in your experiment did go wrong, but they kept it alive anyway. It's the one that escapes in the beginning. But they did a lot of world building. They had to build out a whole new island and say InGen also had this facility, and there's still dinosaurs on it. They had to do a little bit more. Another mutant that they had is the Mutodon, which essentially, like, okay, we're going to have another Indominus that's a hybrid between 2 dinosaurs. What would be scariest and make for the best Hollywood monster? What if it was a pterosaur and a velociraptor? And so the Mutodons are like, they almost look like velociraptors with wings, and they can fly around and terrorize you. And
Ironically, I know this much: the Mutodon is based on a real dinosaur. There's a dinosaur that they found in China that has wings like a bat and otherwise looks like a bird. And the Mutodon is sort of, they were like coming up with a way to have something like that, but to make it be a monster, because the actual dinosaur is the size of a canary. Like, it would not be scary. You would not be, oh God, you might be like, what the heck is wrong with that bird? But that's basically it. But yeah, that's something I know for a fact that is actually a real thing about. So yeah,
they've got the mosasaur, which they need to get the sample from, but they're tangling with the mosasaur. The mosasaur is symbiotic with Spinosauruses that are aquatic and ocean going, and so they kind of explain that the Spinosaurus will seek out the prey, and the mosasaur will come, and the Spinosaurus are almost like the small little animal that gets the leavings. The 50-foot long Spinosaurus plays the role of the little tiny fish that swim alongside the great white shark. But it's interesting because that's one of the things that fascinates me most about the whole franchise. They're not making it up. This is not just, a movie series about dragons and they can do whatever they want and they can make the dragons bigger and the next one or smaller. Like, it's a movie series about dinosaurs, and the current understanding of dinosaurs has come forward in leaps and bounds. And so they have to decide, are we going to update the dinosaurs so that they're more accurate, making it kind of a retcon because that's not what the dinosaur looked like in the last movie or the movie before 30 years ago? Or do they have to keep their own models and say, well, people know this as what we had, so we're going to ignore it? And so they do both. You know, they don't give any more of the, they don't give the T-Rex feathers. They don't update its appearance. They use it because that's like the hero of the story. But they updated the Spinosaurus a ton. And it's different in a lot of ways from the Jurassic Park 3 one. And they do that in a lot of them. They have other dinosaurs that are updated with like some of the latest ideas. They introduce new ones like the Quetzalcoatlus that actually, I think that one is in Dominion ripping apart a plane, which I think that one might get the biggest. Matt Rossi looks directly at camera and shakes head.
Yeah, they wouldn't have done
scene. That's in no way capable of that.
Quetzalcoatlus did not weigh anything like that. Any vehicle it would go up against would outweigh it by a factor of 100. We're talking about the biggest Quetzalcoatlus in the world probably weighed less than 60 kilos. And the biggest Asdarkin, which is not Quetzalcoatlus, although it was possibly the tallest, Hatzebgarak, for example, Hatzebpteryk is the hatchet head. It maybe weighed 70 kilos. Like, they just weren't that heavy because they had hollow bones and air sacs that they used so they could fly.
It had to fly. It can't be heavy. It can't do damage to a steel aluminum framed plane. It just can't.
I mean, birds can kill planes pretty easily by just flying into the engine. I don't think that's what Quetzalcoatlus is going to do, and I just feel like it's not a good idea. It just isn't. So I am looking directly at you, audience. But at the same time, it's nice that they even used it. Quite frankly, the mosasaur is ridiculously too big.
It's even bigger in this one than the one in Jurassic World.
There's no way. The biggest mosasaur we've ever found any evidence for is tipping in around like 45, 50 feet. And it would certainly be much bigger and heavier than a Spinosaur. We're talking 12 to 18,000 kilos. So like up to 18 metric tons. But that's much bigger than a Spino, but it isn't like it isn't going to have like 4 Spinos acting as like, spotters for it. Even if Spinos did go out into the open ocean, which is not something we can currently say. But again, I'm fine with them doing some of that. Like, I'm fine with them taking some extremes on it just because, first off, because we know these things are genetic hybrids.
Right.
They're designed. That's not intended to be a real dinosaur. It's intended to be a recreation using, and also though, because who knows what we're going to find tomorrow? We could find a gigantic new in the time between these movies, they found another Spinosaurid in South America that's practically exactly the same as Spinosaur. Uxmal. And that thing, it's a little smaller, but it's definitely within tolerance of Spinosaurus. And they had no idea it existed. These things, what's available for them to even do is always going to be in flux.
Yeah,
so.
The Spinosaurus is one of my favorite examples because we had a Spinosaurus fossil. It's a dinosaur fossil, so it's incomplete by a wide margin. But we had it found in something like 1900 or 1910. It was destroyed in a German museum in World War II, and so we didn't even have that. There were some more conjecture and discoveries kind of made on it based on photographs of that fossil in like the 80s.
Yeah, and then they found the ones in Morocco.
Then they started to find more. So now we have, I don't know, maybe 7 examples of a Spinosaurus, and we're learning more that it was more aquatic and things like that. But
yeah, and also the interesting thing too is not just that we have more of Spinosaurus, we have more Spinosaurids in general. We have Baryonyx. We have there's Irritator. This is my favorite, and the fact that they haven't had Irritator in one of the movies, it actually has been in one of the Jurassic World cartoons. But Irritator is a Spinosaurid that they discovered, and it's named Irritator because it was so hard to get out of the ground that they're angry at it. They were mad when they named it, so they named it Irritator. And that's hilarious to me, but it's also hilarious to me because without Irritator, we would not have known about the way that their jaws look. Like, if you look at a Spinosaurus's jaw, it has like this curved bit at the front that you see in other dinosaurs. Like, you actually see it in Dilophosaurus. Dilophosaurus has a very similar joint in its upper jaw. The rest of its jaw is nothing like this, but that's there. They think now that wouldn't even have been visible. The thing had lips, and lips is also something we didn't know for a long time. If you go back and look at depictions of T-Rex from like even 15 years ago, their teeth are all visible. But an animal's not going to have its teeth visible if it can avoid it. Crocodiles don't worry about this because they're submerged all the time, which means that Spinosaurus might not have had them, but it does have the basal femora, so it might have had lips. T-Rex absolutely had lips. It covered its teeth. You would not have seen a T-Rex's teeth unless it was opening its mouth. And that's something that it's just something we didn't know. And we didn't discover that. Again, we talked earlier about the Jurassic Park generation of paleontologists. Those are who discovered the foramina on the skull. Those are the ones who said, wait a minute, what are these holes? Why does it have these? Is this where the ligamentous bands like they have in lizards? Because nobody was looking at lizards for cues on dinosaurs anymore. And they're the ones who said, wait a minute, we can't just assume that anything on a dinosaur we don't understand is like a bird. I mean, these aren't birds. They're not, they're related to birds. Birds are them. Birds are dinosaurs, but not all dinosaurs are birds. There's very likely elements to certain dinosaurs that are not bird-like.
This is my favorite part.
Yeah.
There's so much that we don't know about. I won't even say dinosaurs because there's so many animals in these movies that are not dinosaurs. The pterosaurs. There's a Dimetrodon, which is not a dinosaur, which I don't think we have time to talk about. But
yeah, not a dinosaur, and not even closely. It's like it's 30 million years before the first dinosaur even existed. You're telling me you found a piece of amber with Dimetrodon DNA in it? I don't believe you, because mosquitoes didn't exist yet.
It's not the oldest one, and they don't explain how they get the mosasaur DNA. Did a mosquito bite a mosasaur? In Rebirth, there's a quick scene of a Dunkleosteus.
They have a Dunkleosteus? That's great.
That's like 350 million years ago?
Yeah, more than that even.
So the fact that dinosaurs were on the Earth and dominated life for almost 200 million years, and humans have been around for, you could call it 200,000 years. I mean, the reign of dinosaurs is we cannot comprehend that time.
Even if you go back to our first Homo ancestors, like Homo habilis, you're still looking at 1 million, 2 million years tops.
Yeah, if you took the timeline of the dinosaurs from the first dinosaur to the KT extinction and you laid it down over the route of the Boston Marathon, and then you took the timeline of humans and laid it down from the finish line going backwards, it wouldn't even stretch past the library where the finish line is. It's like 40 yards compared to 26 miles. Humans have been on the planet for a blink of an eye, and that just makes you think, how many dinosaurs and other animals that lived in this time do we not know of? Because we just haven't found a fossil. Yeah, there's much more. We're discovering more and more.
You even get to that with there's other forms of fossils that are left. Like there's an entire field of study that is just coprolites and other stuff that animals secrete. So poop and skin samples and footprints, and they have ichnofossils, which are fossils of those. They don't have a dinosaur fossil for them. We don't know what animal this was. We just know this is what its foot looked.
There's just so many. When we think about, will there be more Jurassic Park, Jurassic World movies? Like from a Hollywood standpoint, how could you not? We're gonna get one of these every 3 years for the rest of our lives, and they'll probably go on long after that. But the potential of anything. I mean, in the first novel, there's a throwaway, like a single line where a 6-foot dragonfly goes by, and Grant is like, oh yeah, back then there was more oxygen, so insects were bigger. It's like, well, you didn't even mention that they cloned dragonflies, and they're flying around.
It's an actual griffinfly. That's what they're called. They're the relatives of dragonflies. They are much bigger. Yeah, griffinflies.
In the cartoon series, they have a Smilodon, and so that's going back only 10 or 20,000 years.
No, 5,000.
Is it? Oh man, so like
they literally died out near the end of the last ice age. They were in North and South America like they spent a solid 10 to 15,000 years with humans before they died out.
My favorite part of that one is they don't bring it back for real in the canon in the franchise until the cartoon series, which is like somewhere in the Jurassic World era. But there is when they show the stuffed animals in the original Jurassic Park movie, there is a Smilodon stuffed animal there, suggesting that they at least were trying for it.
They were going to do it sooner or later. Yeah. It's funny because that is one you could actually do. We've got enough. We could actually make one of those. So yeah, I think we've kind of talked this into the ground. Joe?
Yeah, I mean, I think that I
mean,
don't
let's
have
be
anything else
upfront.
to
I think
add,
Eric and I could keep going, but I also don't think that, that'd be another hour and we got to stop sometime. For one thing, I need to eat.
Yeah, so I think that'll do it for us. I do want to thank everybody for joining us on this adventure of Titanic proportions. Again, Blizzard Watch is made possible due to the generous contributions at patreon.com/BlizzardWatch. Your continued support means that this podcast site and community is able to thrive and grow. Blizzard Watch supporters enjoy exclusive benefits like early access to our podcast, better chance at having your question answered on our podcast through the queue, and an ads-free site experience. Again, if you have questions for this or any of our podcasts, be sure to send it into podcast@BlizzardWatch.com. Specify the show that it is for in the subject line, as well as any special pronunciation of your name. You can also hit us up on Discord. We have 2 channels set aside. We have the Q and Podcast Questions channel open for everybody. Same rules apply. Sending us an email. And then if you are a Patreon subscriber, we have the Patreon Q and Podcast Questions channel set aside specifically for you. We tend to look there first, as always saying thank you for helping us keep the lights on. With that, folks, we'll see you next week.